Hey there everyone, welcome to FJX 2000 Productions and another episode of Let's FJ. In today's episode, I get some new tires for my FJ Cruiser. So everybody, like I said, this is gonna be my tire video where I get some new tires on the FJ. This is a brand new tire to the market. It is the Thompson Baja Boss AT. It has all sorts of new technology put into it to make it an awesome all-terrain or hybrid tire, whatever you want to call it. And this is a brand new tire size. No other brands make this specific size. So I'm excited to use it on my FJ Cruiser. First things first, why am I getting new tires for the FJ? Well, currently my FJ has a 3.5 inch lift, whatever you want to say. It's a 3-inch suspension lift with a 1/2 inch body lift. And as far as the wheels go, they're the TRD 17 by 7 inch wheels. I have loved these wheels ever since they first were debuted back in 2013 on the FJS Cruiser concept. And then later they put them on the TRD Pro 4Runners, and I just had to have them for my FJ. So they fit pretty well on my Trail Teams Special Edition, my 2008. And the tire size that I decided to go with is the 315/70 R17 size. Basically what a lot of people call a 35 by 12.5 inch on a 17 inch wheel. And it's been a great size. It's had its ups and downs. And those are some of the things I want to discuss before we get into why I'm getting these new tires. From this angle, you can kind of see just how narrow those wheels are compared to the tires and how far these tires stick out from the wheel. Like I said, those wheels are a 17 by 7 inch wide wheel. And that means that they're 17 inches in diameter from there to there, but width-wise, this way, they're only 7 inches. But these tires are 12.5 inches wide, or 315 millimeters wide. And to have this wide of a tire on that narrow of a wheel was never really intended. And there's even some tire shops that will not install this combo. I tried Discount Tire and Big O Tires. Neither of them would touch this wheel and tire size. And I knew it could be done, I just knew that it wasn't good. So I went to Walmart and they did it. Most of the time for tires that are this wide, 315s, they do recommend a wheel that's at least 8 or 8.5 inches wide. So a wheel that's only 7 inches wide is certainly not quite cutting it. It's not quite wide enough. And you can see, I can't remember what some people call it. I think they call it like donutting, but like just the fact that the tires stick out so much and then they dive into the wheel. I think they call that like a donut style tire, when in reality it should be a lot more flush from the edge of the sidewall down to the wheel. It should be not in here, but more at this level. One of the things that I've had to battle is that the sides of the tires get worn out less than the middle of the tire. You can see how the middle of the tire is almost completely roasted, almost all the way gone. But when aired up to full tire inflation for my tire pressure monitoring system, the edges just don't quite hit the ground. They kind of curl up because the wheel is basically pinching the tires and bending them in a little bit on the sides. And that makes it so that way we're not getting full tire contact unless I go pretty low in tire pressure. But I don't want to do that unless I'm off-roading. So I have a solution, and that solution are these tires. So when it comes to these new tires, this size is a 255/85 R17. So if you know what those numbers mean, the first number, 255, is for width. That's 255 millimeters. And like I said, my tires currently are 315. So these are quite a bit narrower. The website says that it's comparable to being about 10 inches wide versus 12.5 inches wide. And that 10-inch wide tire is gonna fit so much better on my TRD wheels, these 17 by 7 inch wheels. And that was one of the big determining factors for going with this size, just because there's not a whole lot of sizes that you can run on that narrow of a wheel But this is a new size, like I said, and I think that them being so narrow will actually work out pretty well. A lot of people call wheels that are pretty tall but narrow pizza cutters. So these are 35-inch tall pizza cutters. The math, how it all works out when it comes to tire sizes, 255, 85. Basically, this is a 35-inch tall tire. And even though my 315 70 R17 tires are also considered by many to be a 35-inch tire, it's well known that people call like a 285 70 R17 a 33, when in reality it's a little under a 33. And people call 315 70 R17s a 35, even though they're a little short of a 35. So I did pull out the ruler or I should say the measuring tape, and these do measure just slightly less than 35 inches, but for our purposes, they're closer to a 35 than my worn down 315s are. And so I'm really excited to maintain my ride height, if anything gain just ever so slightly on the ride height on my FJ, but I'll get that narrower wheel, or the narrower tire that'll fit better on the narrower wheel. Here I have those tires side by side, so you can kind of see how that new tire is just ever so slightly taller. Actually, just how it looks way bigger, but it's not too much bigger, but it's certainly narrower. And there's a lot of cool technology put into this tire that I'm really excited for. For one, look at these sidewalls. Holy cow, they are beefy. And some of these lugs, like these ones right here, they're sticking out. You know, there's my finger to compare. It's about 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch sticking out on the sides. These are knobby. So if you want a sidewall that gets you lots of grip, these are certainly a tire to look at. They do make this tire in a mud terrain version, but this all-terrain version is supposed to be much more on-road friendly. It's supposed to be great for snowy or wet conditions, so I'm really excited for that. You can see all the siping in the tread that's designed for, but they're supposed to be maintaining their off-road capability by just being a hybrid tire. You can see how big these lugs are on this side, but you can see that asymmetric tread design. So on this side, you have a lot more smaller tread, and that's supposed to help a lot with off-roading and on-road manners. So I'm really excited to see how they do. I've never run an asymmetric tire, but just for comparison, when it comes to those sidewall treads, just look at how big and chunky they stick out, pretty beefy. And then look at my all-terrains. Yeah, they're worn down, but they were nothing close to this thing. Holy moly, they're huge. And I'm just really excited to have such a deep tire tread as well. And you can see these little triangles in there. Those are supposed to help kick out rocks, so rocks don't get caught in as easily. And it's just gonna be a great tire. I'm really excited to run this pizza cutter and get to know firsthand what it's like to run a tire like this. Here's another angle of those tires. So again, I tried lining them up this way as close as I could so it's centered on the wheel. And you can see just how much taller that 255/85 R17 is, but also how much narrower it is. I think it'll look really good on the FJ. One concern that I have is I have these Bushwhacker fender flares on right now, and those make the FJ look quite a bit wider than a normal FJ. And so you have to really have tires that stick out quite a bit to make it look like your FJ didn't skip leg day. And currently, with these wide tires on these wheels, and I also have 1 1/4 inch Spider Trax wheel spacers, they stick out just ever so slightly. If anything, they're just right in line with the fender, which makes for a really good clean look and makes things so they don't get kicked up on the sides. So I'm hoping that these tires aren't too narrow and that they still look pretty normal with the Bushwhackers, but worst case scenario, I could take off the Bushwhackers and kind of get a different look to the FJ. I do enjoy the Bushwhackers, but if I was building up an FJ again, I probably wouldn't install the Bushwhackers. Exhibit A is just that from them rubbing on the paint all the time, maybe not this side as much because there's that snorkel there, but on this side, you can see all the damage it does to the paint, the wear. It wears right down to the metal eventually. And that's something I recommend against to all people is, hey, yeah, they're gonna do great, but you might want to think about the lasting damages that they do to your FJ. And another reason I decided to replace my tires now is because this front driver's side tire has a leak where it loses about 20 to 25 PSI every day. I'm kind of having to fill it up on a daily basis just so it doesn't go too flat. And it just seemed like with how worn down the center of my tires were getting, and the fact that this tire is now draining out kind of constantly, it just seemed like a good time to start with something new. Before I get these tires installed, I just wanted to do one quick video so I could show kind of where these 315s are in relation to the body mount. You can see if I zoom in right here, we get pretty close. It's hard to see, but there's the body mount. You can see it's been chopped and welded and then chopped again to fit these tires. And I've hammered flat the pinch weld right here and cut back the plastic just so that way I have as much clearance as I can. And when off-roading, it hopefully doesn't rub as much. So it'll be interesting to see some before and afters of this setup with the new tires. But anyways, that kind of gives you an idea of where they sit. Here's the front of the wheel well. Plenty of room up here. It's never been a problem here. It's always been a problem back here. And you can see back here, right there where it rubs all the time. But anyways, time to get some new tires thrown on. I'm gonna cut the video now, and the next time you see this FJ, we're gonna have the new tires installed. Boom, and there it is. We have the new tires installed. My Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT 255 85 R17 tires. You can tell just how much more narrow these things are than the wider tires that I had on before, those 315s. And they're certainly taller. I'll get a measuring tape out here in just a minute so we can see just how tall they are even when they're inflated. I have yet to do a chalk test, but at the moment, for my tire pressure monitoring system, I have them at 46 PSI, and you can see just how tall they are. But they are a great looking tire. And when it comes to the alignment with the bushwhackers, you can see they're actually not too bad. They're sticking out, maybe not as far in the front because that front kind of flares out, the bushwhacker right up here. But for the rear end of the FJ, it's actually not too bad when you look at the alignment, looking straight down, and then you see the tire. It's basically almost in perfect alignment, which is pretty good. I like that look. I like having it at that level. But it'd be curious to see what this looks like without the bushwhackers on, to see just what the setup will look like. Another thing is I have this Baja rack rear door ladder, and I had put a spacer on there on the rear tire mount so that way I could clear this. But with this narrower tire, I might be able to take off that spacer and it might be just fine. But at the moment, I still have my 1.25" or 1.5" spacer. I'm not sure which one it is. The spacer used for this spare to mount it on the back isn't the same brand as the rest of them. So I'm not sure if it's an 1.25" like the rest of my spacers or if it's an 1.5" to clear that ladder. But either way, you can see that it's a much narrower tire. And let me grab a tire that I can put side by side so you can see just how much bigger these are in diameter and how much narrower they are in width. Here are those tires again, side by side. Keep in mind that the 315 70 R17 is very worn down. The treads are almost completely gone, especially in the middle, versus these brand new tires. But this kind of gives you an idea as to the height difference. So those new tires are just a little bit taller, which is pretty good. I'm glad that we gained a little bit of height with those. And again, with the tire inflation, I can see right here on the edges, these little pegs, these little dot things. they're not quite worn off when they are worn off over here. So about this much of the tire I don't think is making solid contact with the inflation that this tire is at right now. But that's better than this much not being on the ground versus this much. But I can still probably lower that tire pressure and get better tire contact. But overall, a pretty cool change. All right, I just pulled out the tape measurer, and it looks like height-wise, when these are inflated and they're mounted on the car and everything, we're getting about 34 inches of height. On the website, they advertise 34.6 inches, but that's not when it's sitting on the ground and being squished down a little on the bottom. So it looks like this is about a 34-inch tire, true diameter at this current tire pressure, and the width of the tread measures out to be just around 9 inches, but then the true width of the wheel, if you measure all the way out to the sidewalls, is the 10 inches. So that kind of gives you an idea as to the true dimensions of the tire. And I did stand on a scale, or put these on a scale, and figure out how much they weigh. They're weighing in just at above 43 pounds, like 43.2. And I think the website advertises them as 43 pounds. So pretty good for a tire of this size, a 34, 35 inch tire. And as far as road noise goes, so far they've been great. And the responsiveness at the steering wheel has also been feeling super good. I've been super happy with how they're driving so far. The real test, of course, will be going off-road and seeing how pizza cutters do versus the old, big old wide tires. But so far, I'm really pleased with this tire size, and hopefully this gives you an idea of what this tire is kind of like. I'm hoping to post some off-road videos here soon with these mounted up, and you can get some action with them. But for this video, this was just showing them mounted now versus then. Let me turn that steering wheel and see how close it is to that body mount, because that's something I'm curious about as well. All right, here we are again looking at where that body mount chop is. And if you remember before, it was hard to get an angle where you could see the distance between the tire and the body mount, just because those old tires, the 12.5-inch wide tires, are so wide. But these only 10-inch wide tires, you can see easily the clearance that you have right there. So I'm thinking that rubbing is hopefully a thing of the past, or at least very, very much diminished, because it is looking great. I'm happy with that. That was one of the main things I wanted to do too. And one of the things I found with that 12.5-inch wide tire is if I didn't have the wheel spacers on there, I was rubbing on the front of my Total Chaos upper control arms. So part of me wonders if without the spacers, if I would still rub on those upper control arms, or if with the narrower tire, I could run without spacers and I could run without bushwhackers, and if it would all still look good. If you want to see that in another video, I could definitely do that for you guys. But that's about it for today. Again, these are my Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT tires in a 255/85 R17 size. Brand new tire, brand new size. And hopefully this video gives you a good idea of what this tire is like, what it looks like on the FJ, and I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.